Welcome to Interesting Choices, a show about media, movies, books, music, video games, all sorts of things that make interesting choices. I'm one of your hosts, Kate.
And I'm Sky.
Hello, Sky.
Hey, Kate.
So, what are we looking at this week?
This week, instead of trying and honestly failing to find a decent Thanksgiving property, we both felt it would be better to look for something made by an indigenous filmmaker. And really, this movie has not only an indigenous filmmaker, but majority indigenous cast. So instead of supporting Colonizer Holiday by talking about one of the few crappy Thanksgiving movies, we'll be talking about Blood Quantum. It's called Blood Quantum in reference to the blood quantum laws used in Canada and the US to determine the level of indigeneity for who gets to join tribes or gets government help. Not every tribe uses them, but it's a very complex, very divisive issue in and of itself.
Yeah, Blood Quantum is a horror movie directed by Jeff Barnaby, who is a Micmaci director, writer. He's done this movie and something else called Rhymes for Young Ghouls. So apparently very into the horror genre, and this one feels very aware of those genre conventions but challenges them in some really fun, interesting ways from a perspective that you wouldn't normally see from the mainstream Hollywood white movie producers. So you get a super interesting take on what could be a very tired, oft repeated theme of the zombie apocalypse.
And it's all really straightforward. Like, they set up how the virus is introduced. They don't bother really giving it a detailed explanation. There's kind of a hand wavy, take our word for it, this is probably what's happening, rumination by one of the characters. But it makes its own rules and it sticks to them. And God bless it for that.
Yeah, it does have some interesting themes to it, but doesn't try to go too high concept with anything, and is all the stronger for it because you know the rules, and here we're subverting them in these specific ways. And I think that's really cool. I also think it's great that it was filmed on the reservations up in Quebec. Indigenous filmmaker, Indigenous actors. It's super cool. It lends a great perspective to everything. Compared to a lot of the movies that we've watched, this is super competently produced.
Yeah, it's beautifully shot. And especially like the opening, what I can only assume are drone shots, really just set the tone so well without saying anything. It's just these sweeping shots that slowly start turning until they turn a little too far, sort of foreshadowing the way everything gets turned upside down. I have to believe they lost at least a couple drones doing that.
It's a wonderful shot. And in general, all of the establishing B-roll shots really highlight how beautiful the area is. And the symbol of the bridge as the dividing line between the white and like indigenous worlds is, I mean, it's a literal one, of course. That's just how it exists in real life. But it's well used in this film.
The setting is 1981 on the fictional Red Crow Indian Reservation in Quebec. The film just sort of sidesteps the whole what would we do if there were cell phones and GPS and that sort of thing by making this setting the early 80s.
A lot of horror movies are doing that these days just because GPS and cell phones and everything really present challenges to the suspense of a lot of situations when you can just be like, yeah, don't do that thing. There's definitely a monster there. Just text me when you get like somewhere safe. Here's a website to look up how to kill them.
It turns out Greg is actually the killer. Don't trust Greg. That kind of thing. I mean, it's a pretty, I don't want to say thin. It's like a sleek narrative. It just kind of goes and you have interactions coming off of it without it getting bogged down too much. One of the criticisms I've seen is that there's some clunky dialogue and some poor performances. I don't know that I agree about the writing, but I do feel like some of these are like, they took the first take and went with it. Not that that's a problem. Honestly, it happens so rarely. It just kind of only really caught me off guard when it happened.
There are definitely some actors in this film that don't have super long careers, and you can tell that they're still finding their way in their performances, and it's fine.
In fact, the first character we meet, Isigyu, which apparently just means old man, so I don't know if it's actually his name or that's what everyone calls him. He's out fishing, and he's played by Stonehorse Sloan Goman, who this is his first movie appearance. Before this, he was an MMA trainer, and it like really shows in his physicality, but he also just kind of does it like he's got the knack for acting most of the time.
He is fully invested in his role, and it shows.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of one of the antagonists from John Wick 3.
Is it Mark Dacascos' character?
I think so.
The sushi chef?
Yeah, the sushi chef.
Yeah.
He has that same sort of like vibe and energy, the like zealous, having a good time swordsman.
He's definitely having a good time. And they do a really good job with a lot of show don't tell exposition, because we learn about the plague pretty much right away. He's fishing, he gets the fish, they don't die. You get a nice wide shot of a bunch of dead fish flopping around, which I really want to believe they did practically, and I want to know how, even though it was probably just battery operated fish or something.
It's a spooky scene because the entire time before they start moving, he's sitting there like covered in blood and guts, just pulling out entrails, throwing them in a bucket. You're 100% sure these fish are dead. And then
they're not.
They're not, to be fair. I've had fish kind of like twitch on me after I've gutted them, and it's unnerving.
Yeah, but have they done it for like a good 5 minutes afterwards?
No, absolutely not. Squid will kind of do that. That's really frightening when you cut off the squid's tentacles and they're still like kind of crawling around on your cutting board.
Creepy calamari. But yeah, then we go from him to one of our main players, Trailer, the chief of the tribal police, who is Gisigu's son.
Played by Michael Grey Eyes.
And he does a really good job. He stumbles in a few places, but I'd really like to see him in more stuff, honestly.
Yeah, he has a good presence. You can definitely see the gravitas that he carries. You can clearly tell that his character is not like a perfect guy, but he's just trying his best.
He's one of those people who, like, he knows he's made mistakes, but he's trying to do his best, and it still kind of weighs on him anyways. He carries that weight really well in the movie.
The first time we see Trailer is when he stops by a neighboring person's house who apparently hit Joss's dog with his car.
Ugh, yeah. If you don't like seeing stuff happen to dogs, I mean, it happens just now, and that's it. So, you know, it's one of those things where you can just look away. You don't have to avoid the movie.
Yeah, but the dog is in significant amounts of pain, and Trailer decides, oh, okay, I just need to put this dog down. As the police chief, he pulls out his pistol and then puts the dog down.
And it's sad, and then he puts the dog in his trunk for some reason.
To take it back to Joss, because it's her dog.
But yeah, he gets a call that he needs to talk to his ex-wife, Joss. And just a brief little shout out to the dispatcher, Doris, who is the best.
Doris is pretty cool. He heads over to Joss's place with the dog in his trunk, ready to tell her about the dog. And she has some news for him. Their son is in the pokey with his half-brother,
Alan,
a.k.a. Lysol.
I really want to know how he got that nickname. They just sort of hand wave it away, but I need to know.
They mentioned that like he went into foster care in Alan and came back a Lysol.
We sort of start getting the exposition of how Lysol is a person who the system categorically failed. He was Trailer's son by another woman, and he didn't take care of him. And then something happened with Alan's mom. It's not elaborated on, but it sounds like it was, you know, a tragic situation. He goes into foster care, and foster care does what foster care does to some people.
He's kind of been trouble ever since, but the younger brother, Joseph, has a soft spot / admiration for his older brother and constantly is trying to make good with him.
Yeah. In fact, the whole reason he's in jail is because Lysol was picked up, and then Joseph did something, we'll get to that, to get arrested as well so that Lysol wouldn't be alone in jail.
Yeah, but Joss has to go to work, and they refuse to release Joseph into anyone's custody except Trailer's. So Trailer has another quest on his quest board in addition to all of the other things that he's been called about. A random drunk guy on someone's lawn trying to be fighty. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of hints of social chaos and weird things going on.
Doris, like, someone called in. He said some white man was trying to eat his chickens and he's going to blow his fucking head off. His words, not mine. I love her chemistry with Trailer. Like, they both respect each other, but they're both entirely done with their and everyone else's shit.
As he's leaving to go pick up his son, he considers telling Joss about her dog, but she's like, hey, my dog's gone missing. If you see him, let me know. And he's like, I will do that.
He's definitely not in my trunk, if that's what you're thinking.
And then he, Dead Dog, and all go over and drive to see what is up with Gisigu.
He meets up with his old man, and we get another really good show don't tell exposition where we see like a picture of, I assume, Gisigu in his younger days with his platoon. Yeah, it looks like he was a veteran and probably where he got the dope ass sword he uses for the entire movie.
There's a lot of hand waving about like where this dude got this sweet katana, but I'm not willing to question it.
Yeah. I am a dyed-in-the-wool weeb, and I don't care. So
yeah, I know too many people that own katanas that are not Japanese that I'm not going to question it.
Trailer's brought up to speed on things may not be entirely normal at the moment.
At first he thinks, oh, old man, you're imagining things. These dead fish can't be coming back. But he sees all these gutted fish flopping around and they start freaking out, trying to figure out what to do. And then the trunk of the car starts thumping.
And we get a little jump scary bit as the dog tries to get revenge for being mercy killed, essentially.
So after setting the dog and the fish on fire,
yeah,
they are both like, I don't know what's going on. Trailer pulls out a tin star from inside of his jacket and says, I'm deputizing you, old man. You're coming out of retirement.
I don't know if he might have been the chief of police before Trailer. I kind of like to imagine, because he runs a pawn shop now, and I like to imagine that's what he's always done. And Trailer's just like, you're deputized because I can't handle this crap on my own.
And there's something going on with someone named Shooker. Someone needs to go investigate it and bring Shooker down from the mountains. But there's too much stuff going on. Trailer has to go get his son and his other son, I guess. So he leaves the old man to take care of some of the other tasks that Doris has assigned him.
Yeah. And we briefly meet the white police officer on the other side of the bridge who's named Shamu. I don't know if that's his real name. I want it to be his real name, but it's probably not.
Shamu has locked up Joseph and Lysol, and they are in a holding cell with a white dude who is having a bad night.
Yeah, he is coughing, and it sounds like he's barfing, but we don't really see that until a little bit later. But yeah, Lysol and Alan just sort of have a moment together, you know. Like he's like, you don't have to keep coming after me, and it's like, if I don't do it, who will? And you know, he really cares for Alan, and Alan seems like he appreciates it, but also kind of resents it at the same time. Like these two guys really sell this relationship.
They're starting to have a moment, but then they're interrupted by loud groaning and vomiting, and they look over and their cellmate is on the ground
barfing up blood.
It's your typical, oh shit, things have gone real bad, please get us out of here. And they start banging on the walls and being like, we need to go, we need to get us out of here, this is bad. Trailer walks in and he and Shamu have a little convo about young Joseph.
And we find out what he did to get locked up.
Apparently, he got drunk, crawled up onto the
trestle bridge
that separates the white and indigenous parts of town and just decided to take a dump on the first car that came by.
Yep, just protest shit off a bridge.
Yeah, and there's a great shot of like an old white lady having her car just befouled. And I think Shamu says something like she thought it was a pterodactyl.
And it's a really good example of the humor throughout this movie, which never gets to be too much. It's just enough to alleviate the tension, give you a few chuckles without taking over, which is nice.
And so in this sort of shared, like, oh, boys will be boys camaraderie, Trailer and Shamu decide to go back to the cells where there is a loud shout and a commotion.
A lot of blood. I should mention, if you don't do gore, if you're not a gore hound, this is not the movie for you. There are some very, very well done practical effects, and you won't enjoy it. But if you are, you're in for a treat.
There are definitely some nods to Tom Savini's work in the Dead films. Like, the practical effects are really good. People being torn apart is pretty realistic. So if that's not for you, definitely give this film a pass.
Yeah. The now zombified drunk attacks Shamu, and he goes a little police brutality on him, which it was a little uncomfortable to watch until I remembered the guy was a zombie. So
yeah, before Shamu beats him down, he manages to bite the officer, and he also manages to bite Joseph.
Yeah, they get out of there. Shamu's locks the still not dead guy, because the beating didn't completely kill him, in the drunk tank.
Outside, they're kind of just like collecting themselves. Trailer is like, okay, we're going to take you to your mom at the hospital. She'll get you patched up. And he has some choice words for Lysol for being a bad influence on his other son.
Yeah, but he also realized that he hasn't been the best father either. And he's like, he needs better. Lysol's, better than what? And then Trailer's either one of us. They both kind of have a think and then drive off.
There's clear tension between the two, and I like how complex Trailer's character is. Like, he's a flawed man just doing his best with what little he has.
Then we kind of get a split between Joseph going to the hospital, meeting up with his girlfriend, Charlie, and Trailer heading up to see Shooker.
Charlie is a white girl who we learn is at the hospital there not to see Joseph. She's actually surprised he's there. She's there to get an abortion because they are pregnant and they don't want to be pregnant. Or do they? Who knows?
Joseph, in his situation, he has complex feelings on it. They really kind of sell that these two care about each other and that they're both not really sure about the situation. It just goes to show, like, the depth of all these characters is really wonderful to see.
I like that all of the characters have relationships with one another that are different and feel very organic.
The only time that kind of falters, I feel like, is after we meet Bumper, because I kept getting him confused with Shooker. That's 100% on me. But there isn't a lot to differentiate them character-wise. Like, they have similar hairstyles, they dress similarly, they talk similarly.
Similar body shape. The only difference is one carries a chainsaw and the other one carries a shotgun.
Yeah.
But we will meet Shooker in a sec. Because as Joseph is going to get treated, his mom comes out and they're talking, and you see a commotion in the background where one of the patients is causing a ruckus.
Yeah, we get more little glimpses of things starting to escalate in the background. Jess is like a hard ass, but she cares. And Joseph is like, he knows what he did was wrong, but he feels like he did it for the right reasons. So he's not completely contrite about it.
Trailer, on the other hand, is now going over to Shooker's house to try to find out what's going on. There have been some weird calls about how the ambulance was summoned out to meet Shooker's
white girlfriend.
Yeah, white girlfriend who is pregnant and maybe just had a baby. Who knows?
He says they've been calling them from since the previous night and still no one's shown up. So he gets there and Shooker's hopped up on, it seems like, everything, because he's not making sense.
So instead of dealing with Shooker's nonsense, Trailer just decides to go upstairs and see what's up.
And I can just say right now, if the next scene's a little very gruesome. So if you're watching it concurrently with this podcast, turn away now.
The next scene is pretty rough because he was expecting a sick woman who may be going into labor. Who knows? Instead, he sees a woman with her back turned, standing up, holding the leg of an infant, kind of dangling it in the air upside down.
Yeah, we see her eating her baby. The zombie lady eating the dead baby. That was rough.
Yeah. Trailer kind of tries to engage her, but she turns and attacks him.
There's a struggle and they get outside. I think Trailer tries to arrest her, but that doesn't work out so well.
Yeah, and she bites both Shooker on the ear, I think, and then she bites Trailer on the arm, and then Trailer smashes her face in with the butt of a shotgun.
Yeah, really, really good practical effect, like a dummy head getting smashed open. Super gruesome. If you're not into that, if you do like good practical effects, it is very nice.
At this point, things kind of fall to shit, and Trailer is summoned to the hospital to rescue Joss, Joseph, and Charlie, who are now kind of blocked in with a bunch of people while there is a zombie apocalypse going on all throughout the hospital, and they need a way to escape. And then Doris is on the radio saying there's a lot of weird stuff going on from the hospital. Joss is reporting in, don't get bit. But most of our people at this point have been bit.
But he gets to the bridge and he sees an ambulance crash, and he gets over there, and the driver, who is through the windshield, looks pretty dead, is dead, reanimates, and comes after him. It turns out the ambulance that crashed had Joss and Charlie and Joseph in it. Joseph is stuck in the back with a zombified lady. Trailer has to shoot the lock off, and then she gets on top of him. It looks like she's going to maul him, but then a chainsaw goes through the back of her head and out of the front of her head.
And then Bumper, who he's a great character. He just is a man of few words and just comes in and chainsaws
the head right in half, falls over, and he's just like, new chain, check it out.
And then
we get a time skip.
Yeah, at this point, you're concerned for all of the people, and you're like, oh no, everybody has been bit, and we know that bites are turning people into zombies, and so therefore we're left in suspense as there is a cut to black and then a title card saying 6 months later.
And there's a few animated interstitials throughout this. They're kind of rare, but they're really well done too. And they're sort of there to do a little exposition, but also set the mood. I don't think there's one here. There's one near the beginning, though. But yeah, we get a sweeping aerial of the town. There's a lot of random fires and wrecked buildings. The bridge is blockaded, and our survivors have built their very own post-apocalyptic outpost, complete with bodies strung up from a backhoe.
We're introduced to this compound by seeing a man in a hockey mask looking thing, spray painting a wall behind a limbless zombie who's been strung up and hung outside the gates.
It turns out to be Lysol in the hockey mask, but I just want to dwell on his costume there, because he's got the white hockey mask sort of painted up to look like a skull. He's got a black leather jacket with white wings on the shoulders and a black hoodie. And then for his weapon, he's got a scythe. The blade end has kind of been turned up, so it's a little more like a spear, but it's still a scythe. And I really felt like that was good imagery and some really nice foreshadowing as well.
Yeah, Lysol definitely is the Reaper of this part of the movie, in terms of both the Grim Reaper and also Reaper from Overwatch. He has a chip on his shoulder and is an edgelord.
Yeah, the phrase he's spray painting on the entrance to the camp is, if they're red, they're dead. If they white, they bite, referring to this movie's, I don't want to call it a gimmick, but that's twist on the zombie formula that indigenous peoples are immune to this zombie virus. If you're white and you get bitten, you die and then turn. And if you just die, you turn into a zombie. It seems to be like Walking Dead rules where everyone kind of has it. And if you die, you become a zombie unless, you're burned or your head is destroyed.
They kind of allude to the fact that some meats are tainted, salmon, dog, the water from the river is tainted, but the water from the mountains is good.
It seems to have come from the sea. You're left to wonder how exactly, maybe industrial runoff, but people who ate the salmon have turned. They're hunting deer and caribou and stuff for meat and scavenging.
They've set up a Mad Max style compound, and Lysol and his lady disciple, I guess.
Her name is James.
James and Lysol are just hanging out front, waiting for the external contingent of their party to return.
Yeah.
For some reason, and I'm not entirely sure why, Joseph and his now very pregnant girlfriend are doing runs out to the wilderness to pick up survivors.
It's kind of heavily implied that Charlie wanting to help as many people as they can, and there's sort of two camps about it, where there's one camp kind of grudgingly puts up with it because it's basically the right thing to do, and then Lysol's camp, which is fuck him, I hate him.
In the ironic twist in this film, they have set up a reservation inside their walls for the white survivors who can have a place of safety. But we learn all of this through the interaction of a white father who has brought his sick daughter to the camp because he heard that they were able to cure bites.
I mean, that's kind of true.
Yep.
In the you can't be a zombie if your head's smashed open way.
Lysol is not having it. He does not want any more mouths to feed, and he sees the girl and he sees that, she is 100% bit. He kind of unwraps her from the blanket and sees a big bite on her neck, and he's like, nope, we're just gonna kill her.
Well, he tries to make the dad do it, which is really fucked up. But Trailer busts out and he's like, what the fuck's everybody doing? Gets the lowdown on the situation. It's like, fine, I'll do it. Everyone get inside.
One of the group of survivors is a girl named Lilith who Lysol recognizes and is like, that girl's bad news. We don't want her here either.
And that turns out to be truer than even we know. But they got to put down the little girl. And James, we have this little moment where the dad's still clinging to these blankets that are just covered in the little girl's blood. And James rips them out of his hands and burns them because they're infected blankets.
It's a good nod. Trailer goes out to do the do.
I can't remember if it's Shooker or Bumper, but one of them has a really dope battle axe. Looks like it was made out of a brake disc or something. But yeah, he grabs the battle axe, waits for the little girl to die and then rise up. And then, we get a cut to black just before the deed is done.
Inside the compound, they are processing the new folks. Joss is there. She is now running the infirmary, and she is interviewing Lilith, who she's kind of walking through okay, here's the rules of the res. How's your health? Have you been bit? You got to tell me if you've been bit. And she's like, I definitely haven't been bit.
She was totally definitely bit.
Which we see later when she goes to the bathroom, lifts up her shirt to examine her bite. In the bathroom, she runs into another one of the survivors, sort of.
She notices something coming out from the stall and she sort of peeks over, and the father has taken his life. Giving us another moment of show, don't tell. He comes back because he wasn't bitten. It's just sort of everyone kind of has it. If you die and you aren't decapitated or burned, you come back. And if you're white, you come back. And Trailer just sort of has to grudgingly do his duty.
Poor Trailer just has to constantly just clean up other people's garbage.
Yeah, it's really great how he's just kind of, let me take care of this.
Lysol is super pissed about the fact that they keep bringing new people over and decides that he's just going to throw a party because he's angry.
Yeah, he gets drunk, yells at everyone at the gate before they go out for a fun run or a supply run. But they also talk about how they're going to have fun killing zombies.
There is a garage on the outside of town run by someone named Muppet, who keeps telling people that if they come to him, he will give them the vaccine for this virus, which just involves giving him head.
Yes, he's telling people the vaccine is his penis.
That goes about as well as you would expect. So the men of the Red Crow Reservation have to
clean it up,
deal with the consequences of this. Yeah.
Yeah, but we get a really neat brief overview of what their defenses are like and how everything works. They were kind of talking about how at the beginning they were running out of ammo trying to shoot all the zombies coming across the bridges. There are only small groups on their side. One of the people, Snow, they set up a funnel, sort of a cattle funnel, to funnel the zombies towards what looked like a snowblower. So every time they start coming towards it, he just looks up from his book and just flips on the switch and they get ground to hamburger.
Yeah, they seem to have things at least more or less well locked down. They have a fallback position at a church where Doris is, and it's near the docks where their boats are. So if things fall to shit, they can just go get on the boats and then find another place.
Yeah, it's all really, really well thought out. The white people part of town is just far away enough that if something were to happen, they have enough time to meet up at the church and then make it to the boats before stuff happens. At least that's the idea.
It doesn't matter because Lysol's having a great time at his party. They send Joseph out to kind of keep an eye on Lysol because he's a bit of trouble, and Joseph wants to make sure that his brother isn't causing too much of a ruckus. At this point, Joseph and Charlie have had kind of a heart-to-heart about how shitty Lysol is because of the way that he treats all white people, but Charlie specifically.
You kind of get the sense that maybe Lysol sees some of his mother in Charlie, and that's why he's acting out. They don't explicitly say it, but that was the feeling that I got. So
yeah, but regardless, Joseph's just done with his shit. He's like, yeah, I've covered for him for so long, and he never isn't shitty, so whatever.
And then he goes to look after him, and then if I was looking after someone, I probably wouldn't let them do that much cocaine.
Lysol is at this party, and he's already drunk, but this guy brings the last of this supply of drugs, which he chops up and then puts into his beer in a big fizzy mess, and then downs the whole thing.
And some really good acting from him where you can tell the point he goes from being drunk to being absolutely whacked out on cocaine.
He does give Joseph some sort of half-assed apology about his behavior.
Yeah, it's the I feel bad for what I did without actually saying I'm sorry kind of apology.
And you can tell if he weren't just completely out of his head, none of this would happen.
And I don't know if it was a callback to an earlier scene, but he goes to hit on Lilith. And earlier, while him and James were at the barricade, he was talking about how he had like possibly the last pouch of cherry drink powder in the world. And he could possibly trade it for a blowjob somewhere.
Joseph and Lysol also discuss that Lilith is there and that he knows her from a past encounter in a bar where she was trying to make her boyfriend jealous by cheating on him with Lysol. And
oh, God, that story.
Right. This is how Lysol ended up in prison when he and Joseph were there, because he went to perform cunnilingus on this woman and she apparently was on her period.
Yeah, they don't frame it like that. It's sort of the punchline to the story.
Yes, but he ends up wandering into the police station. I don't remember exactly why.
I think someone called him in. It might have been the boyfriend. I'm not sure. But once he gets in, he immediately gets arrested for fighting. And he's like, what are you talking about? I haven't been fighting. And then Shamu's like, well, if you haven't been fighting, why is there blood all over your face?
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's a bit of a tasteless joke, honestly. It is whatever. Like, there's a clear established quote-unquote relationship between Lysol and Lilith. And now that he is whacked out of his mind on meds, drugs, and alcohol and whatever, he's going to try to start that back up.
Yep, get that engine running again. But yeah, we cut to the mod squad out by the gas station. A lot of good stuff in this scene, honestly. They set up like a tripwire and then make a loud noise so when a zombie runs out, he hits it, and then Trailer gets him in the head with the shotgun while he's down. Trailer goes in after Oshigu and Bumper go in, and he gets spooked by a zombie coming out from the ceiling, and it turns out Bumper cut one in half and was just hanging him down there by its intestines.
You see how competent everyone is at their jobs. Like, there's a part where Bumper and Trailer are kind of discussing how many zombies are left in the building, and they're like, there are 10. And that gives them a bit of concern, and they're like, well, we got to go check on the old man. And they follow a trail that leads to this closed off room, and you're like, oh no.
It's a paint booth in the auto shop. Oshigu's in there with his pile of bodies that he made himself, and he's very proud of it.
He is an ace with that sword and is just happily just chopping up zombies all over the place.
The zombies stand no chance. And we get like a cheeky little Quentin Tarantino shout out.
And then we cut back to the party.
We get Snow talking about how possibly the Earth is tired of mankind's shit, and it's using the white people to try to cleanse itself through the zombies. And that's about as much explanation we get for why this might be happening as anything. But yeah. We meet up with Lysol and Lilith to see what happened there.
Joseph goes looking for Lysol, and they are in the back.
Yeah, Lilith turned.
Yep.
Looks like they were in the middle of something when she turned, and she took a big old bite.
You know, she was returning the favor, and then was a little too zealous, and is now just having a little hot dog snack, I guess. And Lysol screaming, don't let her eat it.
Lysol isn't a fan of eating in bed. Then we cut to the animated. It sort of explains how they've started using the funeral pyres again to help get rid of the staggering amount of bodies they've had to deal with.
Joseph and Lysol throw Lilith in the trunk of the car and drive back to the compound. Lysol is doing pretty okay for having suffered a really traumatic blood loss wound.
Yeah, that was one of the only things that really bugged me. I mean, they don't really need to have like a big scene where he gets patched up, but just something. After this, he's fine. He doesn't really have much blood around that area, as you might think for someone who had their penis bitten off, but he just kind of walked it off, I guess.
Yeah, all in a day's work. Yeah, he and Joseph are driving back. They have a little bit of a heart-to-heart in the car on the way back, but Joseph's surprised that they end up at the compound, and Lysol comes out, and he has a look of, let's say, malicious mischief.
He goes in for the hug and gets Joseph in the side with a knife.
Yeah, Lysol sucks.
Yeah, really well acted character. Really love the actor. I fucking hate that character.
Yes. Yeah, he is basically like chaotic evil in this. Like, there's not much redemption of him. Like, I understand his anger and his resentment towards the world, but he definitely causes a lot of people to die unnecessarily.
As he starts to enact his big plan by letting Lilith loose in the white people reservation in order to get rid of them all, but that also, makes everything go to shit.
Joss is in there treating people in the infirmary. Joseph is in there as well. Things are bad, let's say. But our boys don't know that as they come back from their successful mission.
I mean, they don't know it driving up, but once they get a look at what's going on, they know what's happening. It's Trailer, Bumper, and Sugar, and I don't remember who pops the 8-track in and hits the siren on the police car to draw zombies away.
I think it's Bumper.
But yeah, he does the smart thing to lure all the zombies away from the entrance so the other part of the team can get in and see what's what.
The reason I'm pretty sure it's Bumper is because Trailer is like, all right, who has the most meat on their bones?
Everyone just looks at Bumper.
Yeah, but he also like volunteers for it. He doesn't feel like betrayed or anything. He's just like, yep, my job. I'll do this. He's having a good time, honestly.
Yeah. But a really good needle drop, too, with the 8-track. I don't remember the song. I wish I had written it down, but it sort of scores their re-entry into the outpost.
They're there to rescue all of the survivors and to get them out. Trailer sends someone to go grab a truck. I think it's Sugar to go grab the truck so that they can load all of the survivors on it. And he and the old man go kind of creeping through the compound to see where everyone is.
Josh and Charlie and Joseph are holed up in the infirmary, basically, and they've got 2 doors. One of them, there are arms through the gap. They're trying to get in. The other one is being beaten down. But thankfully, the old man shows up in the nick of time, and really just a dope practical effect of the katana coming through the other side of the door.
The scene that unfolds from there is your usual, like, oh no, zombies are coming in and we gotta escape and the entrances are blocked up and we gotta go this way. And it ends with all of the people sort of escaping up this tunnel, except Trailer is there holding the door to keep them from being overrun by zombies.
He's holding the last intact door shut so they can get away, and he's like, tell my grandchild big stories about me, and sacrifices himself so that everyone else can get away.
The remaining survivors all pile into this truck. A couple of the random white extras fall off and are zombie chow, but they get a call on the radio for Trailer from Doris saying that there's some stuff going down at the church and they need their assistance.
Yeah, so basically Doris is being held hostage by Lysol and his gang and forced to call them. And I thought that he was going to make her lie to them.
Mm-hmm.
But really, he makes her tell the truth. Like, Snow and Lysol and James are killing people at the church.
They don't tell them that Trailer is dead. They just say, all right, we're on our way. We're going to do what we can, because this is part of their plan to fall back to the church and get to the boats. The
way that Lysol and them are forcing Doris to relay the message, they've got a zombie on a leash and threatening to let it go. And when she served her purpose, they let it go. And I really liked Doris. I really liked her character. I really liked the interplay she had with Trailer. And I'm really kind of sad that she went out that way.
Yeah, she deserved better, but a lot of people deserve better than what they got from Lysol.
Also true.
Joseph and the old man go to the church to stop Lysol. I think they send Sugar off to go get the boats.
And then Charlie and Joss are waiting by the docks for him.
Yeah.
There's sort of 2 scenes. Snow is soliloquizing. He's sort of fully bought into Lysol's kill all the white people rhetoric, which, I mean, I don't blame him, and he's orating to a gaggle of white people that are tied up in the middle of the floor, and James is dragging bodies that they're going to throw onto the pile once it starts burning. Snow's dousing everyone with gasoline. While Joss and Charlie are waiting for the boat, Lysol shows up.
Bumper is there with them to protect them, but Lysol stabs him through the back.
Yeah, into the back through the chest. It's sort of one of those surprise stabs where you don't see him until after it's happened. And I like Bumper, too. He was a good kid.
Yeah, Bumper falls. Joss pulls out a gun and holds it on Lysol. There's a bit of a standoff where Lysol is going to shoot Charlie, who's sitting in a car, and Joss has her gun on Lysol, and he has her put the gun down or he'll kill Charlie. She does. That's when he pulls out his trunk zombie.
Yeah, he opens the trunk. Joss dives for the gun and gets a shot into him, but the zombie gets to Charlie. Meanwhile, back at the church, Snow is still orating when suddenly a katana appears in the middle of his head.
The old man, done with taking shit today, is just like, all right, none of these jerks survive.
They manage to save the day, but then they gotta run back because Charlie and Joss are in trouble. And unfortunately, Joseph doesn't quite make it in time, and Charlie is bitten.
Yep. Lysol is wounded. Like, I guess, yeah, he's been shot at this point, but he's not completely down for the count yet. So Joseph and the old man take him off a ways from the other survivors and have their final deal with the older brother.
Yeah, Joseph pays him back for the stab he got earlier. And for a second, it looks like the old man's gonna, finish him off with a shot to the head. But he points the gun in the air and rings the dinner bell. And there's some really, really beautifully shot overhead scenes of the zombies running through the town and the graveyard to get to Lysol.
This is where the Savini influence comes in real hard. Sort of like in Dawn of the Dead, he's torn in half and you can see them all just like feasting on his entrails as he's like writhing on the ground. Kind of the same thing happened to Trailer earlier, but you didn't get to see it in quite as much explicit depth.
You see him torn up a little bit, enough to know that he's dead, and they kind of cut away, which honestly I'm a little glad for, because it doesn't happen often in zombie movies for me where I kind of feel bad that the characters die, but this one really, really got to me. So
the two men of the family go back to where the ladies are, and they are unsure of what to do because all the boats are gone or on fire. But then in the distance, the sound of a motorboat and Shooker appears.
Saves the day.
Yep. And somehow Bumper is also not dead.
I don't know. I'm glad, though.
They pick him up and they haul him onto one of the boats. I guess there are two boats. I'm not entirely sure how any of this happens.
Yeah, I'd need to rewatch it because I thought I saw two boats, but I'm remembering only one boat. But Joss and Charlie and Joseph get on one boat and Shooker and Bumper get on another. And the old man decides to stay behind and hold the line.
He doesn't want to be driven from his land. He says something about that. And so he decides that instead of being forced to leave his island,
he's going to go out like a stone cold badass.
Yes. You see this beautiful cut back and forth between the survivors, like drifting away in the boat, kind of looking mournfully back at the old man sort of making his stand on a hill, just like decapitating zombies left and right.
Just dancing through this horde of zombies with his sword.
It almost looks like he's got the upper hand, but eventually one of them manages to grab onto him and they all kind of just like jump on him.
They dogpile him.
Yeah.
We get the last animated thing where it's sort of a long shot of him and he has prevailed over the zombies. I don't know if that's actually what happened or if it's just sort of wishful thinking. I want to believe he did it because, the whole scene at the paint booth earlier.
Yeah. I believe that's one of the big stories that ends up being told later on. At least that's how I interpret it, that like they gave him his heroic legacy regardless of what actually happened in real life.
Yeah. Whether he lived or died, he gets to have that just spectacularly badass moment of fending off a horde while everyone makes their getaway. And
of course, at the worst, best possible moment, Charlie is going into labor. She's kind of been going into labor, but the baby's coming. And so Joss, Joseph, and Charlie are having to give birth to a girl on a boat.
Yeah. Charlie gives birth to a bouncing newborn baby, and she gets to hold it for a bit until she can feel the disease starting to take hold.
Like any good bleak zombie movie, Joseph has to make the choice to do the right thing and give her the non-zombie ending that she wanted.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost Mist levels of bleak. The Mist. It's him and his mom and his child, and they survive, so it's not quite that bleak.
Right. Yeah. And somewhere on another boat, Shooker and Bumper are just having a good time.
Yeah.
Not many people get out of this movie alive.
That we know of.
Yeah. As a good zombie movie should do.
Yeah. We don't really get a larger picture of the rest of the world, which is good. It's a very self-contained, not exactly claustrophobic, but still like a close quarters movie as far as the setting goes.
That's pretty much the end of the film. It leaves on that sort of bleak note, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I 1000% recommend this. It's on Shudder right now. If you can do the free trial, do it. Even if it's just to see this, do it. I really can't recommend it enough.
It's a great film. It's not very long. It's only about 96 minutes long and uses that time well. Like there are never really any parts that feel like they drag.
Yeah, I've heard some people say that the movie trips over itself trying to set up all the characters, and I really feel like they're missing the human drama for that, because it's there. It's like, this is a family story and also a zombie apocalypse story. Like, this is a family of flawed people with a flawed father, and how those flaws manifest themselves in this extreme situation.
Yeah. There's a lot of themes about colonialism, about generational trauma, about all sorts of other larger, weightier issues that are explored in this fun, easy to digest way. And I think it's great for that. Like, without exploring the characters, you couldn't really have the weight of this film.
And that's honestly one of the best things about it for me, is just the subtlety, but very present relationships all the characters have with each other. Like, they know each other. These people who hang out, get drunk together sometimes, they know each other's foibles. They have quarreled before, the way Bumper and Shooker talk to Trailer, and the way Trailer interacts with the old man and his son, and the way that Joseph and Lysol interact, the way Joss talks to Joseph. Like, these are people who have lived with each other, and that really comes through.
Mm-hmm. It's the best parts of a zombie film, just really distilled down to, hey, it's really all about the people. It's about how relationships are strained and broken by extreme situations and trauma and circumstance, and how people can survive that. And I think that's a really cool thing that they did in 96 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to try to check out Rhymes for Ghouls at some point. I think it's supposed to be more of a coming of age, but yeah, that was Jeff Barnaby's first feature, and this is only his second feature, so I really can't wait to see what else he comes up with, or what else he puts out.
Honestly, this is the sort of movie that really has a perspective that's so unique that you wouldn't get from mainstream Hollywood white directors. This story couldn't be told in a honest, emotional, complex way by anyone but the people who lived with all of these sorts of issues and have had time to process and explore them in their art.
You really can only get this kind of complexity with the authenticity that comes with a lived experience. And Jeff Barnaby says that a big part of his inspiration for this was events that he bore witness to, captured in the documentary Incident Restigouche. It filmed a series of raids conducted by the Quebec Provincial Police against the Listigouche Micmac First Nation Reserve to enforce new fishing restrictions.
Which you see still at play even today. In recent news, you might have heard about the conflicts between the indigenous fishing fleet and the white commercial fishermen. There's all this stuff about the Department of Fisheries and like who gets licenses, and all these sorts of conflicts are still happening. Even in 2019, 2020, treaties are not being honored. They're still suffering the consequences of a lot of this colonialism.
Yeah, and it goes far into the future. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see the end of that anytime soon, unfortunately, without a lot of work on our part.
Yep.
But small bit of good news, at least for that situation. The company that the white fishermen worked for, the Clearwater Company, was bought out by another company and a coalition of Micmac First Nation people. So they now own them.
Yep.
Pretty fun.
I'm glad to see more directors, actors of all sorts of different races, genders, religions, ethnicities, being able to tell their own stories and have those be widely available now. Before, this sort of film, would be relegated to some small film festival somewhere, maybe, if it was lucky. But now with streaming services and digital distribution, it's so much easier for a worldwide audience to be able to experience all of these different types of films with all these different perspectives in a way that breaks up the hegemony that Hollywood has on all sorts of stories that are told. I'm really glad I found out about this. I'm really glad I got to see it and just experience this whole thing. And like, even if you're not a fan of horror movies, even if you're not a fan of zombie movies, I still feel like this is worth a watch. As long as you're okay with gore. I mean, there's a lot of gore. There is a lot of gore. There are a couple like jump scares, but honestly, it's not a super scary movie. It's just a very gory one. It really relies more on emotional tension than jump scares or setting the mood. Oh, apparently James is queer. The actor is queer. So I'm glad we're getting some queer representation too in this.
Nice. But yeah, if you have access to Shudder, if you know someone that has access to Shudder, or if you have a computer, it's worth checking out all on its own, but definitely even if you're just checking out Blood Quantum.
And if you aren't interested in subscribing to things because, like me, you forget to unsubscribe, you can also just rent it on Amazon. I think that's literally the only place that it's available for streaming outside of Shudder.
But yeah, Blood Quantum, can't recommend it highly enough, honestly. Or, any time of the year, Thanksgiving, Halloween, 4th of July, what have you. Mm-hmm. Just, any given Thursday.
It's a great film. And one of the things that we wanted to do for this special non-colonizer holiday episode is highlight the fact that a lot of the First Nations tribes have been particularly hard hit by COVID-19 and could use your support if you can afford to spare it. So if you can, go to firstnations.org, scroll down the page, and they will have a link to their COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund where you can donate to directly support Native communities, especially those like the Navajo Nation in Arizona, who have been so pivotal in making sure that elections go well, that sort of thing. So definitely, if you can do what you can to try to center First Nations people and their experiences and their needs this time of year, because while you're enjoying your turkey and stuffing and gravy, other folks out there are having a hard time and could use some assistance.
Yeah. That was Blood Quantum. Kate, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on TikTok and Twitter as Army of Meat. And where can people find you, Sky?
You can find me on Twitter at shard_corso. That's SHARD_CORSO. You can find the show at www.spreaker.com/shows/interesting choices, or you can just search for us on Spreaker, Interesting Choices. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and your podcast service of choice. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so at our Patreon, patreon.com/interesting choices. And if you have suggestions for the show, you can drop them at our Twitter at interestingchoice6, INTRESTINGCHOI6. And keep in mind, we do try to record most of these a couple months in advance. So keep that in mind when you drop your suggestions.
Yeah, we'll get to them eventually. But reach out to us on Twitter at any point, and we'll be happy to discuss any of the shows that we've done in the past.
Yep. But as always, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.